Next up, we have Ulysses Butch Slaughter, who will take us on a journey through his deeply personal story. It led him to produce the film series False Allegations 411, which you can find on YouTube. And he is also a special legal assistant at Jafari Law and Mediation in California. Let's hear his perspective on false allegations and society's reaction to guilt simply by accusation.
I am Ulysses Butch Slaughter. I'm honored to be here and participate in this press conference. Though I was born in Chicago, I come to you today having lived most of my adult life near the city of Philadelphia. Once simply called the city of brotherly love, an extension was added in recent years to honor the many valuable and undeniable contributions that women, our sisters, have made and still make in one of our nation's largest and most beautiful cities. Philadelphia is now recognized as the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. Men and women in this new era could have simply decided to continuously criticize Philadelphia's founders for ignoring the contributions of women. What men and women in this new era chose to do instead was to take a shared action to bring balance in the city that birthed our nation's Constitution. Men and women in New York are in New York to call for a course correction regarding the lives of men and boys all around the world. As stated by point 7 of our preamble, we are here celebrating the gains made for girls and women and demanding the same opportunities for boys and men. And as stated in point 9 of the preamble, when men are disadvantaged, it is ultimately harmful to women. We are not here using theories as our truth. Most of us have lived our truth, breathed our truth, and maybe even bled the truth that we speak today. It would be disrespectful for me to talk about the challenges of men and women without talking about my parents, Ulysses Grant Slaughter Sr. and Clarice Joyce Slaughter. I'm obligated to speak their names because I would not be here with you today if it were not for that one man and that one woman. I cannot speak to you today and not be reminded of June 25th, 1978. The day my father shot and killed my mother. My mother and father co-created a madness in our home that would ultimately lead to a murder in Chicago. I was 12 years old. I was in the apartment. I heard the gunshots. I remember standing over my mother. I remember looking at my father. I remember the paramedics taking my mother. I remember the police taking my father. I remember wondering, what next? For decades, I blamed myself for not being man enough to protect my mother. I punished myself. I hated myself. As I stumbled into manhood, I became anti-man. In many ways, I became anti-me. In the name of my mother, Clarice, I decided it would be my life's work to rescue all women. In her name, I would go to battle against all men. I put my mother first. I put all women first. Like my mother, every woman was a potential victim. They were perfect and needed protection. I put my father second. I put all men second. Like my father, every man was a potential villain. They were predators and they needed prisons. I became an asset to domestic violence organizations that sought to protect all women from all men. I was called a domestic violence rock star by women's organizations. The more I talked against men, the more popular I became. In my mind, I was honoring my mother as I clumsily tried to climb a hill that had a new and painful lesson waiting for me at the bottom of this slippery slope. On August 4th, 2021, my ex-wife, Pauline Thompson, made a false allegation of abuse against me in order to initiate a divorce. Pennsylvania State Police came to my home and evicted me. I never suspected that Thompson would treat me with such reckless cruelty. I had no idea such a disgusting legal tactic even existed. As I packed my clothes, I thought about June 25th, 1978. I thought about my mother being carried out by paramedics. I thought about my father being arrested by police. I felt like a 12-year-old child again. I remember wondering, what's next? What happens after that false allegation of abuse is the same thing I experienced as a child. Feelings of betrayal, paranoia, depression, sleepless nights, isolation. As an adult and under these allegations, I would also suffer reputation damage, financial damage, and physical compromise. Seeking guidance and support from my female allies, I reached out to women who once called me a domestic violence rock star. If and when they returned my calls, I got questions like, did you get angry at her? Were you arguing? What did you do? One woman said, maybe you did something and didn't realize you did it. I did nothing to deserve what happened. My crime was being a man caught up in the rigged game of false allegations and domestic violence. I got evicted from my home based on a false allegation, but there were no shelters for men like those that I once visited for women. I was consumed by a cloud of confusion, but there was no free counseling for me. I was about to go broke, but there would be no financial supports for me. On September 9th, 2021, I was handcuffed and arrested in jail for the very first time in my life. I was being accused of violating a protective order. Ironically, on that same date, just 1 year earlier, on September 9th, 2020, an international observation was launched in England by Lynn Crabtree to bring about awareness to those who have been falsely accused. Ultimately, a judge ruled that I had not violated the protection order on September 9th, 2021. And though I was released from the jail cell, my spirit still feels confined by that false allegation. In the month following my ex-wife's false allegation of abuse, I became obsessed with understanding the world of false allegations. This new world already felt far beyond my comprehension when I came across a story about a social media post by a woman named Emily Linden. In November 2017, Linden, who was editor at Teen Vogue, posted this statement on the platform formerly called Twitter. Linden stated, "I'm not actually at all concerned about innocent men losing their jobs over false sexual assault and harassment allegations. First," she said, "false allegations very rarely happen. So even bringing it up borders on a derailment tactic." She continued, "The benefit of all of us getting to finally tell the truth, plus the impact on victims, far outweigh the loss of any one man's reputation. If some innocent man's reputation have to take a hit in the process of undoing the patriarchy, that is a price I am absolutely willing to pay." Linden's kind of statement is not uncommon. It is a dangerous, broad brushstroke that indicts all men, alleging that they are all guilty of profoundly and simply being men. I'm not actually at all concerned about innocent men losing their jobs over false sexual assault and harassment allegations. I was that innocent man, but according to Linden, I could be used to undo the patriarchy. I was expendable to a movement for which I had once dedicated my life. My service in that movement didn't matter. My fight for my mother didn't matter. My sisters had abandoned me. I was no longer a rock star. I had hit rock bottom. But of course, that's where my recovery began. That's where I got sober around my contribution to my own fall. To be fair, I had never been an overt enemy to men. In fact, I had run fatherhood programs, I had developed rites of passage programs for boys, and I have 4 sons of my own. But in hindsight, I can honestly say I was just going through the motions in my commitments to men and boys. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I believe they already had advantages. So my engagement was lukewarm, lackluster lip service. The months following my ex-wife's allegation made it clear to me that I was still fighting my father's sins, fighting the world through the pain of his action, still fighting my lifelong internal deception that I could have saved my mother. I think about what happened to my mother every day. I hear those 2 gunshots every day. It would take an almost equally opposite and devastating event to help me rebalance my mind around equity for men and women. The false allegation of abuse by my ex-wife was that equally opposite and devastating event. The false allegation was a major and almost mortal shock to my system. The event wasn't something I simply read about. It was now something living and flowing through my veins. What kind of event will it take for us to rebalance the way we have sacrificed men and boys? How many have to suffer? How many have to be falsely accused? Linden said false allegations are very rare. What she should have said is that false allegations are very rarely reported and very rarely punished. Why report a crime if the crime always goes unpunished? Why speak up if you are already being shut down financially, physically, emotionally, and socially? Why speak up? Many men believe it's simply better to shut up about false allegations. Lyndon said the patriarchy must pay, even if the lives of innocent men are destroyed in the process. What mother wants that reality for her son? What grandmother wants that for her grandson? How long will we pay for our past? How long will we continue to punish one another for the crimes of those who came before us? French philosopher Frantz Fanon stated that each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. I repeat, each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. I believe men and women of this generation have an opportunity to embrace the mission of deep and lasting equality for men and women, boys and girls. I believe the mission is far more clear than it is obscure. We can pretend not to see it, but that won't make it less obvious and that won't make it go away. The mission is clear. Reconcile the world for men and women, boys and girls. To rephrase the words of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., we can learn to live together as brothers and sisters, or we can perish together as fools. Today I ask you, what are we going to do? Thank you.
Thank you. Whew, it's tragic, the things that you and others have to go through. And we're so lucky that you can turn that around into something of strength where you can share those experiences with us so we know that they're real, and it combats the narrative and really helps us as much as we can what people like you have gone through. So thanks.